making progress here in Henrico County. And then in 2020, after we have all that hard work in 2019, because Virginia, we do it every single year. In 2020, I'm going to need you to maybe send me back to Washington because I love it there. And I'm going to need you to send my dear friend, my colleague, my neighbor, Congressman Donald McEachin back there with me. Because he has been working in pursuit of democratic values here in Henrico County since before that Walmart even went in. And we need him back in Washington. And then, as we're working on that, we also have the chance to send new leadership to Washington, D.C., to the White House. We will take a stand of what is important to us, what it is that we believe our community should represent, and who should be leading this nation. And I join you today here as a voter, excited for the opportunity to hear from one of our candidates, and to know for all of you here that look at the progress we have made, because suddenly Henrico County is on the map, and we So thank you for all of your hard work. Thank you for everything that you do to support us. And I look forward to listening right alongside of you as a fellow Henrico County resident.
So I know what you're all waiting for. I know you're excited, but before we get to the main act, I have some people you need to know. We have candidates here who have changed the face of the Commonwealth. Some of them took over incumbencies, long-standing incumbents, and some of them are new challengers. But I want to take the opportunity to introduce you to our candidates. For the 56th House of Delegates delegate seat, we have candidate Juanita Jo Matthews. Unfortunately, she could not be with us today due to her father's passing, but Dawn Adams is running in the 68th House of Delegates. We have Skylar Van Valkenburg. He is the delegate from the 72nd District. Running for the 73rd House of Delegates seat is Rodney Willett. And we have a candidate for Senate here, Delegate Deborah Rodman. Now, it got confusing, and I don't want to miss anybody. Are there any other candidates out there that I missed that are running for the House of Delegates or Senate? All right, great. Now, on to what you have been waiting for. So, hang on. Okay. So less than a week ago, I was at the dog park when I got a text message that said, "Hey, Lizzie, would you like to have Beto O'Rourke come speak to the Henrico County Democrats?" From an unknown number. And I said, "Sure, Santa." And she said, "Actually, my name's Alice and I'm with the advance team." And I was a little embarrassed. But hailing from El Paso, Texas, Beto O'Rourke has served his community and country by starting a technology business employing dozens of high-wage workers. He was one of the youngest members ever to sit on the El Paso City Council. As a U.S. Congressman, Beto served on the Veterans Affairs Committee, the Armed Services Committee, and the Committee on Homeland Security. On Father's Day, he led a his favorite accomplishments is being the husband to Amy and father to Ulysses, Molly, and Henry. Part of why we're so excited to have Beto O'Rourke here today is because he understands the necessary power of the grassroots. In his 2017 bid to become senator in Texas, he made it his mission to visit each of Texas's 254 counties and held over 350 town hall meetings. He received more votes than any other Democrat in Texas history, and whether he knows it or not, he brought hope to the nation that message matters more than establishment. It gives me huge pleasure to introduce to you Beto O'Rourke.
Henrico, how are we feeling? So grateful to be here with you today. Our first full day in the Commonwealth. This is the biggest turnout of any of our events so far. So thank you for welcoming us, making us feel at home, for being so excited right now. Lizzie, thank you for organizing this, for welcoming all of us, for bringing us together. To Representative Spanberger, for your achievement in winning that critical election in 2018, for the service that you are already providing to this community and every community within your congressional district, fighting for your constituents, making sure that at the district level, everyone who has a challenge with the federal bureaucracy or red tape, those service members who come back from Afghanistan, a war that we're in our 18th year of, or who came back 50 years ago from Vietnam, a war that this country did not understand, whose service we did not appreciate, those veterans looking to get care at the VA, to take care of post-traumatic stress disorder, or traumatic brain injury, or military sexual trauma, or those signature wounds and conditions of service and combat and war. It is your office and your team that is connecting them with literally the life-saving care that they have earned and that they deserve. We are so grateful for you, your staff, everything that you do. I cannot wait to see what you do going forward. I got a chance to meet your DA, Shannon Taylor. There she is. Described herself as the pebble that began the ripples that turned into the blue wave that we saw in 2017 and what must continue in 2019. Because I just met Delegate Rodman and Delegate Von Volkenberg. Listen, folks, we've got to return them to the State House, right? Sorry, we're going to return them to the Commonwealth House. Yeah, is that the right way to say it? House of Delegates. We also got to make sure that we flip control in the Senate so that we can protect the advances that you have guaranteed in that 2017 election. Expansion of Medicaid, more than 400,000 left to do. Today we commemorate the 12th year of the Virginia Tech shootings, 12 years since that took place, 32 murdered, and yet in this Commonwealth we still do not have universal background checks for every firearm purchase. We know that in those states that have adopted them, a near 50% reduction in gun violence, more lives saved, better outcomes. We need to make sure that we win these elections and some more so that we can return power to people and make decisions on behalf of one another and not the NRA or the Spanish. I understand that public school educators, that means the school bus drivers, the custodians, the cafeteria workers, the nurses, the counselors, the librarians, those instructors in the classroom in front of the kids, we are not paying them their value and what they are worth in this Commonwealth. We are forcing too many to work a second or a third job just to make ends meet, when they have the most important job in front of them, unlocking that lifelong love of learning within that child. Once we do that, that kid is unbeatable. This country is unstoppable. I want to make sure that at the state level and the federal support we provide every public school educator. It's the key to the future of this country. And listen, I know from listening to you, I know from meeting my kids' teachers, all three of them go to world-class public schools in El Paso, Texas, where today they were learning math in Spanish. Tomorrow they'll be learning math in English, making the most of the largest binational community in the Western Hemisphere. Our public school educators who came up with the curriculum and the idea and are making our kids as competitive as they can possibly be. But what I know from listening to teachers in Texas and in Virginia is that not only is it the low pay that you struggle against, it is the fact that so many of you cannot afford the health care that you already have, don't have the co-pays for the prescriptions, cannot afford the premiums or the deductibles to take care of yourself or to take care of your family. You struggle under the weight of high stakes, high pressure, standardized tests that in no way effectively measure your performance in the classroom as a Jara Butler, who worked on our campaign in Texas, and before that was a world-class pre-K and third grade public school teacher, has told me that despite the wages that are not commensurate with the value those instructors provide, despite the fact that so many are working another job to make ends meet, out of their own pockets, they pay not just for the decorations in the classroom, not only for the school supplies for the kid who forgot to bring them from home, but so often for that child on free and reduced breakfast and lunch who does not have a meal waiting for her at home. It is that teacher in that classroom who pays to make sure that she has the nutrition and the calories to burn that night and the next day in the classroom. It is that teacher who, when a child shows up in the same pair of jeans, the same t-shirt Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, by Friday, she has purchased a new set of clothes for him because she understands that his ability to learn is tied to his self-worth, his dignity, his sense of self, and she's going to invest out of her own pocketbook to ensure that he'll do okay in that classroom. Let's get behind these public school educators. We have before us, whether those challenges are of gun violence, whether those challenges are of public education, or whether those challenges are the fact that in this country there are millions of our fellow Americans who have no insurance whatsoever, cannot see a doctor, cannot afford any prescription, can't take their child to a therapist, cannot be well enough to do what they were placed on this planet to do in the first place. To teach school, go to school, to raise their families, to start a small business, to pay taxes, to shoulder their fair share of the burden, so that it rests a little bit lighter on the rest of us. The poems unwritten, the punk rock bands unformed. Universal, guaranteed, high-quality health care for every single American. It may sound like an expensive proposition, but it is a whole lot less expensive than what we pay for in this country today. 97 years after insulin was invented and sold in the University of Toronto for $3, $3 Canadian at that, with no hope of profit or royalties, because they understood it would save the lives of their fellow human beings. Right now, drug companies are making record profits off of something that should be free to all of us, and too many of our fellow Americans in the wealthiest, the most powerful, the most technologically and medically advanced country on the planet are dying of diabetes. Just read a story of a nurse who is administering insulin to her patients, cannot afford to buy it for herself, at least not in the quantities that would keep her alive. She was rationing her insulin to stretch her dollars and to stretch her care, and she is dead now. Her story, like that of too many of our fellow Americans, consumed by curable cancers or dying of the cold or the flu in this country. Unconscionable, immoral, inexplicable, unless you understand that while we have the resources, we have yet to form the political will to do the right thing. Universal health care means every single one of us is able to see a primary care provider, that every single one of us in a country whose largest provider of mental health care services in so many states is the county jail system, where people with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and depression literally get arrested on purpose to go to the one place they are guaranteed care, clothing, food, prescriptions to psychotropic medications that temporarily keep them alive, at extraordinary cost to the lives not fully lived, and the expense of keeping them jailed for $100 or $120 a night. Universal care has to mean universal access to mental health care in every single part of this country. In the midst of a crisis of maternal mortality, in a state like mine in Texas, where our legislature and our governor have shut down more than a quarter of the family planning clinics, making it almost impossible not only to legally obtain an abortion, but to get a cervical cancer screening, see a family planning provider, see a provider of any kind in a state that has yet to expand Medicaid. So we are losing women 3 times as deadly for women of color. And so universal health care must also mean every woman makes her own decisions about her own life. A country that prides itself on the fact that our nation, unlike so many others around the world, is defined not by race or ethnicity or common genealogy, but defined instead by an ideal that we are all created equal to equal opportunity, that we are one out of many from every part of the planet who have found a home here, tracing our lineage back 10,000 years across the Bering Strait, or 400 years in the holds of a slave ship kidnapped from West Africa to literally build the wealth of this country. Those who fled persecution and crushing poverty and famine like my ancestors in Ireland, or those who are showing up right now, leaving the deadliest countries on the planet in Central America, traveling 2,000 miles to find a home here because there's no other home for them. Doing what you would do, what I know I would do, if the only way to save our kids' lives was to make that trip by foot or atop a train known as the Beast or Alaska, to try to follow this country's asylum laws, only to find at your most desperate and vulnerable moment that child is taken from you by force, that you're deported back to the very country from which you fled, your child placed in a cage, and maybe in the custody of Office of Refugee Resettlement, maybe in a foster care home, and literally, God only knows where, visiting a torture and a cruelty upon that child and you that hopefully the rest of us can only ever imagine. And we've been there for those families lucky enough to be reunited. And that 8-year-old child, when she finally sees her mother again after months apart, is not smiling, is not crying tears of joy, is not impatient to tell her mom everything that she's just experienced or learned or heard, the way my son Henry, when I come home from a trip, does to me. Instead, there is literally nothing on that child's face, a vacant expression, an inability or unwillingness to connect again with the one person with whom she associates the greatest pain she has ever felt in her life. And take no comfort, if you're a Democrat, that this was done by a Republican president of another party. As long as we are a democracy, and we are the government, and the government is the people, for as long as this persists, it is on every single one of us to change it. Not as Democrats or Republicans, but as Americans, as human beings, doing the right thing while we still have time to do the right thing. Beginning with freeing every dreamer from any fear of deportation. Making them U.S. citizens here in their true home country. Not doing it at the price of deporting their parents, the original dreamers, or building a 2,000-mile, 30-foot-high, $30 billion wall. The walls that we already have, the walls that we could build, will not be built on the international boundary with Mexico. That's the center line of the Rio Grande River channel. We'll have to build them miles into the interior of our country. You and I will be forced to take our fellow Americans' property, their farms, their ranches, their homes, their land, to build something that we do not need, a solution in search of a problem. For a fraction of that cost, we can invest in the Northern Triangle countries of Central America, seek to reduce violence and enhance the in the first place. This is a perfect opportunity for us to live our values and our ideals. And we cannot meet this challenge or this opportunity by half measure or by only half of the country. It has to be all of us coming together to decide that we will make it so. When we think about this economy that works too well for too few and not at all for too many, it's not just school teachers and public school educators working multiple jobs. One job is not enough for millions of our fellow Americans right now. A minimum wage in too many states of $7.25. You could work full-time, you could work full-time plus overtime. You could work full-time in another job and you will still be below the poverty line. Unable to make ends meet, to afford your housing, food on the table, those prescription medications that are out of reach right now, even more so when you're not paid enough. We got to make sure that one job is enough, that we raise the minimum wage ultimately to $15 an hour as a floor in this country. We got to make sure that you have paid family leave so you can take care of yourself, your kids, or your family. And listen, we shouldn't have to say this in 2019, but we must. We've got to pay women equal to what men earn. Where you can be fired based on your sexual orientation. In a state like mine, where it is legal to discriminate against members of the LGBTQ community, we need to sign into law the Equality Act so that the full civil rights of every single one of us is protected in the workplace, in school, wherever you are alive. And speaking of civil rights, if you're willing to look squarely in the face a system of criminal justice that has imprisoned more people per capita than any other country, disproportionately comprised of people of color, far too many there for an arrest for a non-violent drug crime. And what we know is that Americans of all races and ethnicities and countries of national origin use marijuana at the same rate. But what we also know is that more likely than not will be African Americans who are stopped, patted down, frisked, arrested, do jail time, upon release, check a box on every employment application form saying that they have a conviction, making it less likely that they get the job, will no longer qualify for federally sponsored student loans, no ability to improve themselves in higher education. Going forward, their future narrowed, their options constrained. So not only must we end the prohibition on marijuana, we must expunge the restrictions that jailhouse from schoolhouse pipeline begins not in high school, where I may have imagined it would, but I wouldn't know because it never happened to me, and I didn't experience it as a white man, but begins in kindergarten, when a child of 4 or 5 years old is 5 times as likely to be disciplined or suspended or expelled if they are a child of color in this country. So it's not just our criminal justice system, and it's not just our system of education. It's our system of healthcare, where you see disparities in infant mortality between white America and black America greater today in 2019 than in the year 1850, 15 years before the abolition of slavery. We have to look squarely in the face not just these systems, but our country and our foundation, and how wealth was built that has turned into 10 times the wealth in white America that there is in black America today. The compounding effects of Jim Crow and segregation and redlining and continued suppression throughout this country. And what's the criminal justice system that also fix the United States of America to be the worst for each and every single one of us. The very youngest here will remind me that the greatest challenge that we face will disproportionately affect their lives. They'll bear the consequences of our action or our inaction. Those scientists, if we will still listen to them, 300 years after the Enlightenment, and thank you for marching for science, those of you who did. They tell us that this planet has cooked 1 degree Celsius over pre-industrial revolution levels just since 1980. And that warming is in large part responsible for the storms that we are seeing, the flooding that results. 58 inches of rain fell from the sky in Houston, Texas in just one storm in 2017. That is the landfall record for as long as we've been keeping them in North America. And it was the third 500-year flood in Houston, Texas in 5 years. They should be good for 1,500 years. But the scientists tell us that those storms and those floods will only become more frequent, more devastating, more profound in their destruction and the taking of human life. The wildfires that we are seeing in California and other parts of the world, it'll be the same. There will be more of them. It will be more devastating, more deadly. The droughts through which our farmers persist in their attempt to grow the food and the fiber that feeds and clothes us and so much of the rest of the planet will soon be impossible. We were in West Texas during the Senate campaign, and a woman walked into our town hall. She said, "I've never been to one of these before. We're missing my son's basketball game to be here. I'm a Republican and I probably shouldn't be seen with you," she told me. "But I am here because I farmed the same land that my grandparents did, and my parents before me. But what my grandparents planted and grew, and my parents planted and grew, we are planting and it is not growing right now. Climate change," she told me, "is not something that we have to prepare for. It is something that is happening to us right now." Those families might be in crisis. Our country, our border is not. But imagine what happens if so many of those who are fleeing in part because of drought in the Northern Triangle, when those countries can no longer support human life. And that is a trajectory that we are now on. But those same scientists say that we have 10 years left to us as a human race, as a civilization, to get this right, or at least better than it will be if left unchecked. If we can free ourselves from dependence on fossil fuels, if we can invest in renewable energy, like wind and solar, and the jobs that come along with it, if we can partner with rural America, in the way that Congresswoman Spanberger has tried to partner with rural America, by allowing farmers to do their part, providing within the Farm Bill incentives to plant cover crops that pull more carbon out of the air, open up technologies like precision tilling that disturbs less of the carbon that is in the soil. In other words, if every single one of us does all that we can and sets the example for the world, we can once again return to our rightful place as the indispensable nation, convene the other powers of the planet to do what was otherwise impossible for them, for ourselves, without our leadership. Day one of our administration, we signed back up to the Paris Climate Agreement. To make sure that this planet does not warm another degree Celsius, do everything within our power before it is too late. This is our moment of truth, and we cannot be found wanting. The people of the future, my kids, your kids, our grandkids, are counting on us. And when they are my age, in the 2050s, I want them to look back on us with pride, with gratitude, the way that we look back on the greatest generation, those threats and challenges that they faced, the greatest depression the world had ever known, the greatest threat to Western democracies that we had ever faced. They came together, harnessed the power of this democracy, a far more conscientious capitalism, and they triumphed. That can be our distinction at this moment. But underlying all of this is our democracy. If we cannot get to one person, one vote, if we cannot defeat gerrymandering in this Commonwealth, in my state, that ensures the integrity of the ballot box and no person vote if we can have a state-dated and automatic voter registrations where we can if we can get big, unaccountable money out of our politics, no PACs, no special interests, no corporations, just human beings, and maybe, just maybe, we can do all of this. It's the way that I've served, going back to the City Council in El Paso, to my time in Congress, every year in the minority, the only way to expand mental health care access for veterans, or to invest in the U.S.-Mexico border, or to protect public lands was to find a Republican partner to do it. We're campaigning this same way, going to every community, showing up everywhere. No me importa si son republicanos o demócratas. We will be defined not by our fears or the divisions that are the greatest of our lifetimes in this country. I am confident that instead we will be known by our ambitions, our aspirations, the work, the creativity, the service, and the sacrifice we will bring to bear in order to achieve them. That is why I'm running to serve you as the next President of the United States. For anyone who would like to ask a question, make a comment, offer a suggestion, I came to introduce myself, but I also came to listen and learn and incorporate what is important to you into this campaign. Cynthia's got a microphone. She'll take it to you. You can raise your hand. Here we go.
Viva Beto!
Blue mic. mic is not going. There we go.
Hi. Wow, this is okay. Yeah. So I want to ask. I'm Asian American. My mother was an immigrant from the Philippines, and a lot of times when we discuss undocumented immigration, at least in the Commonwealth of Virginia, a quarter of undocumented immigrants come from Asia, whether it be Southeast Asia, South Asia, or East Asia. So I wanted to ask. I mean, how can we incorporate Asian voices and Asian Americans, Asian dreamers into the discussion of immigration reform?
You're doing it right now by being here by asking the question, by reminding us that the most pressing humanitarian crisis at our borders today originates in the Northern Triangle, but that immigrants and dreamers and asylum seekers come from the world over, not just from the Americas, but from Africa, from Asia, from Europe as well. So I want to make sure that when we talk about the diversity and the strength of this country, when we say that we do not just tolerate or respect our differences, but we embrace them and they're the source of our success, that we're talking about everyone in this country. So look forward to working with you. And if you want, you can share your contact information with us. If there's something I'm missing in my answer, I want to make sure that you help to include it for me. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, to your side right, Beto. Here we go.
Hi, Mr. O'Rourke. My name is Jack, and I'm a sophomore at the University of Richmond. Coming back to school has been a really awesome experience for me. I'm originally from Illinois, so this is a brand new place for me, learning about all the different people, and I've got to work with a lot of people in and around the Richmond community, and I've been really struck by the diversity of this place and just the country as a whole as I've learned more about it. How can you speak to a little bit of working with all Americans? I know it's a really divided time in our country, and it's really easy for us as Democrats to always come together and say that we're going to do it. How would you like to maybe speak a little bit to how you would like to work with all Americans from across the political spectrum to get the things we need to do done?
Thanks for the question. And really appropriate given some of the things that are going on in this country and some of the things our president has recently done and said. If you go back to his time as a candidate, mocking people with disabilities, calling Mexican immigrants rapists and criminals, though they commit crimes in this country at a far lower rate than those who were born in this country, calling Nazis, Klansmen, and white supremacists very fine people, referring to asylum seekers as animals or an infestation. You might expect to hear someone call someone else an infestation if they're in a position of power in some dictatorial regime. Maybe in the Third Reich. You wouldn't expect it in 2019 in the United States of America. But this rhetoric and these words offend not just our sensibilities or our ears, they lead to actions, to practices, and to policies that are hurting people. The day that the president signed the Muslim ban, his attempt to limit Muslim travel in the United States, when else have we heard in a Western democracy trying to ban all people of one religion? So there's something inherently wrong with it. Yet our president tried to do that. On that very day, the mosque in Victoria, Texas, was torched and burned to the ground. We've seen a rise in hate crimes every single one of the last 3 years in this country. And then on Friday, he tweets a video that his team came up with that conflates a Muslim American member of Congress, Representative Ilhan Omar, duly elected by her constituents in Minnesota, with the terrorist attack on 9/11. Inviting not just hatred towards her and other Muslims in this country, but I would argue violence. This is the challenge that we face right now. But also, what a great opportunity. Not just to call it out and confront it by name, this racism, this bigotry, this Islamophobia, this xenophobia, but also to offer the positive, the powerful, the compelling alternative. El Paso, Texas, my hometown, one of, if not the safest cities in the United States of America. Safe not despite the fact that we are a city of immigrants, people from all over the world. Safe because we are a city of immigrants from people all over the world who chose us, who came here, who made us safer, more respectful, and safer as well. So telling that story, connecting emotionally with one another, not based on fear, but based on pride and shared interest, this is an opportunity for us. So I want to make sure that in the spirit of your question, we use every single opportunity, not just to call it out, to remind ourselves who we are when we're at our best. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Behind you. Over here, Elizabeth, I'm waving my arms.
Okay,
There we
cool.
go, sorry.
Yeah.
My name is Monica Hutchinson from Henrico County, right here. So I will tell you, I for one appreciate, I have heard you discuss racial equity quite a bit in a lot of platform issues that you speak about. My question is, if you are elected, can we get a commitment from you to create a racial equity, diversity, and inclusion position of some type to where we can get deep training within the cabinet members, your committees, like everything? Can we get that commitment from you?
Yeah.
This is why I have town halls everywhere that I go. I definitely would sign HR 40, which would create the commission at a legislative level to do that, but I had never thought about an executive branch post or position to do that until you raised it right now. So not only must any future administration reflect the genius of this country in its composition, I think the idea of having somebody whose agency or portfolio is defined by their ability to ensure that we meet this challenge and opportunity as a country makes a ton of sense. So I don't know what we would call it. I don't know exactly how it would be constructed, but the answer is yes. I want to make sure that we do this. Thank you. So good.
Hello, my name is Julie Brunel and I live in the city. I was born with a pre-existing condition and I'm really concerned with the health care. My granddaughter right here, she too has a pre-existing condition, both were born with heart defects. My concern is that I'll get my health care taken away. She's very young and that she won't be able to start at one heart surgery and she's going to end up just more. I'm really scared for her that she will be denied health care. What kind of guarantee can you give to all of us with pre-existing conditions that will be taken away from us?
Thank you for being here, for having the courage to share your story, the story of your family, to make the case that we still have a chance to do the right thing. The Affordable Care Act is a great step in the right direction. No lifetime caps, no limitations based on pre-existing conditions. Cover your kids up to the age of 26. But it doesn't meet every single challenge, especially in states where Medicaid is not expanded, and especially since those gains, as we have learned, can be rolled back, and they are. So the answer to that is not just to defend the ACA, though we must. Not just to expand Medicaid everywhere that it has not been expanded, but we got to do that too. Not just to use the bargaining power of this government, which purchases more prescription medications than perhaps any other country. That's essential as well. But to get to true, guaranteed, high-quality universal health care. And let me tell you why I say guaranteed. There are a lot of people who have health care today that cannot afford the health care that they have. Their care is not guaranteed. A school teacher in Weatherford, Texas, died of the flu. She had insurance, but she did not have 119 months, which is a copay on her flu medication. We meet people who are mortgaging their homes to pay for surgeries. We meet people, unfortunately, who just cannot afford their surgeries at all and are dying prematurely or not living their lives to their fullest potential. It's in everyone's interest to invest in everybody to ensure that they're at their best. All of us gain the benefit of what they're going to do over the course of their lives. So, if you measure the cost of universal care in the trillions of dollars, it can sound like a lot of money, but it's a lot less expensive than the way that we pay for health care today, in our emergency rooms, in our jails, or not at all, with lives diminished or not led to their full natural extent. You've got my commitment on guaranteed, high-quality, universal health care for you and your family and everyone else in this country. Thank you. Yeah.
Good evening, Congressman O'Rourke. Thank you so much for taking my question.
Yeah. My name is Salar Khan, and I'm president of the Freeman High School Young Democrats. We're the only high school Young Democrats in Henrico County, and as a result, we represent a coalition of students who are younger in the Democratic Party. We see a federal government which refuses to deal with a lot of the long-term issues, which might end up burdening us. How do you deal with some of those issues as president? Specifically social security, a rising deficit, and climate change. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. You know, I'm reminded by your presence and your question that any significant change we've ever enjoyed as a country has been obtained, purchased by young people and their sacrifice. You know, I mentioned the greatest generation earlier. It wasn't people my age, 46 years old, storming the beaches of Normandy. It was 17-year-old, 18-year-old, 19-year-old, young people from the United States of America willing to pay the ultimate price, and too many did, for this country. We were just in Greensboro, North Carolina, 1960, the Greensboro War. They were not my age. They were students who were willing to be arrested so they could prove that they should be treated like human beings in their own country. The freedom riders on those Greyhound buses to the Deep South, taking their lives into their own hands. Those who lost their lives in the struggle for civil rights. So often, the youngest among us. And so on these challenges, Social Security, right now there's an arbitrary cap on the Social Security taxes that you pay at $129,000 of your earnings. Every dollar over that, every $1 million over that, every $1 billion over that is not taxed into the Social Security Trust Fund. If we raise that arbitrary cap and have the very wealthiest pay their fair share, we guarantee the viability of Social Security. Our deficit, our debt, we're at $22 trillion in debt right now. 2 tax cuts under George W. Bush. Wars that began back in 1991 that we are still fighting tonight. Our 18th year of war in Afghanistan, our presence all over the world, trillions of dollars there as well, which doesn't even begin to speak to the cost of taking care of military retirees, veterans, those women, those men who bore the battle, and made it possible for all of us to enjoy what we have in this country. We can bring those wars to a close, decide we're not going to start any new ones, bring those service members back to this country, invest our resources in rebuilding our infrastructure here in the United States, taking care of our fellow Americans. We can repeal the worst of the Trump tax cuts, $2 trillion that flowed disproportionately to the wealthiest, to corporations, at times of historic income and wealth inequality. We can stop digging a hole. And then on climate change. I mentioned some of the things that we need to do together, but specifically, right away, reinstitute the Clean Power Plan from the Obama administration. It was repealed and raise the vehicle emission standards so we're adding less the carbon to the atmosphere. Make sure that not only do we sign back up to Paris, but we do far more than we've already committed to doing so far, because I think those scientists tell us, as great a step as Paris was in the right direction, it would not be sufficient to keep us under 1 degree Celsius going forward. We're going to have to do everything we can politically, economically, we're going to have to do everything we can diplomatically with the rest of the world to meet this challenge. By 2030, we will have to have converted so much of this economy, this country, and helped other countries around the world to do the same. We're going to have any chance of being successful, and I want to work with you to make sure that we are. Thank you for being here.
Hello, Congressman. I'm Celine Norman. I go to J. Sargent Reynolds Community College. Originally, shout out J. Sargent. Originally, I'm from West Palm Beach, Florida, and I just recently moved to Richmond last July. I know you touched on the subject of gun violence, but being so close to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, I know people who unfortunately lost people that day. Being a student, I am scared every single day to not only walk into a classroom, but to walk into a library, to walk into a crowded room full of people. And it's something that's so scary that I live with every single day, being so close. Not only is it affecting students, but gun violence is also affecting people of color in every single state. But the news fails to cover about it. What I need from you is not an answer from what you're going to do about gun violence, but I need you to promise me that something will be done about this so I'm no longer able or I'm no longer scared to walk into a school. That I have a sense of relief that people of color are able to walk out on the street and not feel as if they are a target. Thank you for coming here and thank you for your response.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. I mentioned that we're the parents of a second grader, 8 years old. Last year he was in first grade, came home from school in the spring, and we asked him what he'd done in school, and he talked about his teacher herding him and his classmates into a closet as they went through an active shooter drill. Like it was no big thing. He just thought that's what kids do. It's not what I did. It's not what my parents did. Met some of those surviving students from Marjorie Stoneman, extraordinary leaders. They helped make the point that we were discussing earlier about where real leadership in this country is right now on every issue we care about, including gun violence. Went to Santa Fe, Texas, which also experienced a school shooting. And if you saw the news that day, one of the most chilling things I ever witnessed was a young woman who had survived the shooting, classmate of those who were killed. And the reporter puts the microphone in front of her face and said, "Did that shock you? That someone came into your school and started shooting your classmates?" And she said, "No. I expected it would happen at some point." When we lose more than 30,000 human lives in this country to gun violence every year, we can either accept that it is our lot, our fate, or that we're inherently violent, or maybe evil, more so than other countries because it doesn't happen in other countries, or that this is a human-caused problem with a human solution. And when we go beyond these sensational mass shootings, or perhaps better said, if we include others who were killed, 1, 2, or 3 at a time, so often people of color, so numbingly common that it does not make the front page or the evening news, those tragedies don't roll off our lips as easily as the other ones do. And we really understand that we have a crisis in this country. What is not easily explained is how the Congress has literally voted to prevent the Centers of Disease Control from even studying gun violence. It would be as though in 1970 the Congress said, we're not going to study tobacco and its links to lung cancer and the hundreds of thousands of Americans who are dying. Of course we didn't do that. And now we've saved so many lives because we treat it as a serious public health issue. I'm convinced that when we remove ourselves from the influence of the NRA and the gun lobby and the political action committees, when we respond only to people and our fellow human beings as we are doing in this campaign, we will find the political will and courage to do the right thing. Not only to study the problem, and we should, not only to insist upon universal background checks, which have been proven to save lives, and which, by the way, gun owners, non-gun owners, Republicans, and Democrats alike agree almost universally that we should be able to do this. But we can move forward on red flag laws where someone who may be a danger to themselves or to others through due process is temporarily kept from using that firearm to inflict harm on the people in his or her life. But we can also take this step, and I will understand at the outset that this may not be popular with everyone here, and I respect your opinion if you differ on the conclusion. But there are weapons designed, engineered, sold to the United States military for the express purpose of killing people as effectively, as efficiently, as great a number as possible. And that's what they do. Listening to emergency room doctors, they tell me a handgun wound. We get to you in time. If it did not hit your heart or major artery, we can save your life. But the high-impact, high-velocity round shot from an AR-15 will destroy the insides of your body. There's no way that we can get to you in time. It was designed for there not to be enough time to keep that enemy soldier down on the ground so that ours can make it out alive. Continue to sell that to the military. Use them on the battlefields in war if there's no other option, but do not sell them into our communities.
What will you do to continue to try and create a safe and inclusive campus environment for all?
First order of business is to replace Betsy DeVos. And the ability for survivors of sexual assault and violence on campuses across the country is a dangerous precedent to set. It must be reversed as soon as possible. I want to make sure that in addition, we fund the resources necessary. So whether it is Richmond, Charlottesville, back home in El Paso, at the University of Texas at El Paso, that we have the resources necessary to do the proper investigations and ensure that we have justice and that we prevent these attacks and assaults from taking place in the first place. This has to be a priority, and the surest way to demonstrate that is by funding the necessary resources to ensure that we are staffed, we are resourced, and we are helping those women and men on our college campuses and throughout our country. So I'm grateful to you for standing up, for being an advocate, for making sure that this is part of the conversation.